Finn out to Enksler. Shot clock down to 2. Howard backs in, flips it up, flips in. The playoff push is on. It's the starting lineups are sponsored by the Power Fizz, and there is Kiki Erie.
Everybody with the speed and explosiveness to guard her. They also got to build some confidence off the bench with some of the new players that they have added.
Well, time to check on
A lot of conversation about Indiana down 3-point guards without Caitlin playing yet and without Ari McDonald and without Sydney Colson. But I think this is a veteran group that you can play at times without a point guard because they get it off the glass top. Leah Boston battling inside with Iriafen right now.
Here's Mitchell on the handoff, bounce pass. Boston one bounce in a left-handed. It's point guard, and Indiana has lost all of their depth as Dolson deep position. Can't finish, but there's a foul.
Besides his teammate, and Indiana is glad to have her healthy.
And Mitchell had 24 points in Indiana's loss on Tuesday. Indiana was down by 17 in the fourth quarter. Finished on a 19-3 run in Akpol. Corner 3. Here's Boston, the offensive rebound. Flips inside to Howard, who lays it in. Indiana. Mitchell, aggressive. Bounces to Howard. Splits the double team. Finds its way to Boston. Mitchell on the drive. Contact made by Melvin. And a foul. Fever have an early 10-6 experience, albeit it is learning on the fly as Sims not afraid to let it fly. Being held scoreless on Tuesday. Per game, that is last in the league. And the Fever are a good three-point defensive team as Dantes launches and hits. Now will go against Iriafen. Good ball movement here. Dantes looking inside for Howard. Cross-court pass. It finds its way to Mitchell, who splashes home a 3. Shot hit off the side of the backboard. Here's Sims, who's getting a lot of early run here for Stephanie White's group. The step through and Soul pokes that one away. Comes up with the steal. Dropping for Sophie Cunningham. Washington doing a nice job of getting back defensively.
Much better job transition defense.
They beat Indiana and Baltimore. The Fever did not have a fast break point in that game. There's Hull spinning, fading, and hitting.
Are you seeing what?
Sutton the switch on to Timpson. The crossover. Sutton pulls up and gets it to go. And Cunningham's got to hurry. Lobs it up. Timpson pushes it home. WNBA.
The stage was set for an electrifying showdown as the Washington Mystics faced off against the Indiana Fever in the 2025 WNBA season, a matchup that had fans buzzing with anticipation well before tip-off. This wasn't just another regular season game. It was a clash that symbolized the new era of women's basketball, an era defined by youthful energy, explosive talent, and a battle for supremacy in a league more competitive than ever before. From the moment the players stepped onto the court, the atmosphere was nothing short of electric, with every dribble, every cheer, and every camera flash carrying the weight of expectation. The Mystics, determined to reclaim their place among the league's elite, squared up against an Indiana Fever squad surging with confidence and powered by the sensational rise of their young stars. It was the kind of game that promised not just highlights, but moments that would be etched into the memory of fans for years to come. As the cameras panned across the packed arena, the excitement was palpable. Fans waved banners, wore team colors with pride, and filled the stands with chants that echoed like thunder before the opening tip. For Indiana, the narrative was crystal clear. This was the year to prove that their rebuild had transformed into a full-fledged rise to dominance. Led by their fiery backcourt and the undeniable leadership of their new franchise cornerstone, the Fever had shifted from underdogs to headline makers. On the other side, the Mystics came into this matchup with their own agenda. With seasoned veterans anchoring the team and a roster filled with players hungry to prove themselves, Washington wasn't about to roll over quietly. They knew that defeating a surging Fever team would not only give them a critical win in the standings, but also send a message to the rest of the league, that the Mystics were still a force to be reckoned with. The narrative leading into the game was laced with drama and history. In recent seasons, matchups between Washington and Indiana had grown increasingly intense, often delivering games decided in the final minutes. The Fever, once considered a rebuilding squad, had developed a reputation for upsetting established teams, while the Mystics, with their championship pedigree, were determined not to let up-and-comers steal the spotlight. This clash carried all the ingredients of a thriller: star power, contrasting styles of play, and the hunger of two teams desperate to define their season. Fans weren't just expecting a game. They were expecting a battle that showcased the very best of the WNBA. From the opening introductions, the spotlight was undeniable. The Fever faithful roared with pride for their rising stars, while the Mystics' loyal supporters made their voices heard, proving that Washington's basketball culture remained as strong as ever. Cameras zoomed in on the determined faces of players as they locked in for tip-off, each one carrying the weight of their city, their teammates, and their personal legacies. This wasn't simply about scoring points, it was about seizing the moment, controlling the narrative, and stamping authority on a game that mattered deeply for both franchises. With the national spotlight shining brightly, analysts had already circled this game as a potential turning point in the season. Could Indiana continue their surge and solidify themselves as one of the league's top contenders? Or would Washington's veterans rise to the occasion, shutting down the Fever's momentum and proving that experience still trumps youthful energy? The answers would unfold not just in the score, but in the hustle plays, the defensive stands, the clutch shots, and the emotional swings that define basketball at its highest level. From the very first whistle, fans braced themselves for a roller coaster of momentum shifts, spectacular highlights, and edge-of-your-seat drama. This was Washington Mystics vs. Indiana Fever, 2025 edition. A game that promised to deliver everything fans had come to love about the WNBA, and the build-up to this matchup was almost as gripping as the game itself. 4 days leading into the contest, sports networks, podcasts, and social media platforms buzzed with discussions about the significance of Washington Mystics versus Indiana Fever. Both teams represented two very different journeys, yet both were equally compelling. For Indiana, this season had become a story of rebirth and resurgence. After years of struggling to climb out of the bottom half of the league standings, the Fever had finally transformed into a squad that was not only competitive, but also dangerous. Their rise was spearheaded by the sensational play of their young superstar, a player whose impact on the court was undeniable and whose presence off it had already begun reshaping the future of women's basketball. She was the face of the franchise, a rookie-turned leader who carried the hopes of an entire fan base. Her ability to score from deep, orchestrate plays with vision far beyond her years, and rise in clutch moments made her a nightmare for defenses and a dream for highlight reels. Every time she stepped onto the court, she carried with her the aura of inevitability, the sense that something special was about to happen. Meanwhile, the Washington Mystics entered the game with their own compelling narrative. A franchise with championship DNA, Washington had the kind of roster that blended battle-tested veterans with hungry role players looking to prove themselves. The Mystics had endured their share of struggles in recent years, battling injuries and roster transitions, but their culture of resilience never faded. Coming into this clash with Indiana, Washington knew that their experience was their greatest weapon. They had players who had been through the grind of playoff wars, who knew the meaning of every possession, and who understood how to stay composed when the pressure mounted. For the Mystics, the matchup wasn't just about adding a win to their record, it was about reclaiming respect, re-establishing dominance, and reminding the league that the road to contention still ran through Washington. Analysts across the league emphasized the clash of styles that made this matchup fascinating. Indiana played fast, relied heavily on spacing, and leaned into their guard-heavy offense. Their strategy revolved around opening lanes, forcing defenders to make quick decisions, and creating chaos with ball movement. Washington, on the other hand, emphasized physicality and execution. They thrived in half-court sets, relied on their veteran leadership to dictate tempo, and prided themselves on defense. The Mystics' ability to control pace and force Indiana into uncomfortable situations would be crucial. On paper, it was a battle between youthful energy and seasoned poise, between offensive fireworks and defensive grit. Fans and experts alike debated endlessly which approach would prevail under the bright lights of game night. The spotlight inevitably fell on the individual stars expected to define the game. For Indiana, their young leader was already being hailed as one of the brightest talents the league had ever seen. Every game she played seemed to draw bigger crowds, more media coverage, and louder applause. She carried herself with a confidence that belied her age, and her playmaking ability elevated not just her own performance but also that of her teammates. Alongside her were versatile scorers and defenders who had embraced their roles, buying into a collective vision that made Indiana far more dangerous than the sum of its parts. For Washington,